Welcome, everyone, to the Crushing Iron podcast. It is May 3rd, 2022. Welcome aboard, everybody. Again, this is the Crushing Iron podcast. We are episode 578.
You're on fire.
We are on fire.
You're on fire out of the gate.
Out of the gate this morning. I'm due.
You're fired up.
It is, I was fired up on my run today internally. I was not ready for the humidity and the dew point. It smacked me upside the face this morning. A little bit of a reality check.
You got outside, huh?
Yeah, I got outside. Brought it to, and it was a reality check, just like it was this last Sunday. We hope to bring you some sort of a reality check today. First time tuning in, welcome. We appreciate you giving us your time. We know you have a lot of options. The Triathlon podcast universe and just podcasts in general, that your time is valuable, so we appreciate you tuning in today. We'll cover it all. We'll do swim, bike, and run specific podcasts. We'll do race recaps like last week. We'll do race previews like we will again later this week with St. George coming up. And we'll have the occasional guest. But for the most part, Mike and I, as coaches, athletes, best friends, we just sit back, relax, have an open, honest discussion about what we're going through, both in life as coaches and in training. We'll talk about what our athletes are going through. We work with a very wide range of athletes, from beginner level athletes looking to their first sprint, all the way up to elite level amateurs trying to get back to Kona, everyone in between, and from all over. We have the majority, I'd probably say 95+% of our athlete base is outside the state of Tennessee, and then we actually work with a lot of international athletes. So we'll use the commenting and feedback loop we have with them and just the general communication about our athletes and what they're going through, again, both on and off the course and in training and in life to drive the topic of the day. We'll also occasionally hop into our Facebook group, which is Crushing Iron Group. If you want to be a part of that awesome conversation and community, just answer one simple question. What's your right in? A lot of great people in there. It's an outstanding resource for everyone, again, from beginners, or even if you've never raced a triathlon, you're just kind of dabbling and your interest is peaked, but you don't know where to start. It really is a lot of awesome people there that are very experienced, been here for a very long time. So be a part of that community and don't lurk, participate. That's it. We don't do sponsors. We don't do ads, but we have one agenda. That's to keep you happy and healthy in your endurance sports journey.
Nice, man. So I heard a little rumor that says you're kind of training a little bit.
I don't know if that's a rumor.
No.
Rumors usually lies.
You started out with your run talk, so
I'm on a
little bit of a groove.
Yeah. When after Kona passed away and like doing a bunch of reading and stuff about, one athlete in particular, and I sent it to you, sent me this really long kind of PDF that was hard to read, but very enlightening about just how hard and difficult it is to lose a pet, and to lose, and I was actually watching yesterday, I was on the bike, I watched Scott Mempel at ESPN lost his dog, and he had like this huge 5-minute thing he did about it. And he was saying like it was harder than when he lost his dad, which is no offense, but he was like, it's hard in different ways. Anyway, so I was reading through it and it talked about one of the things that, dogs specifically bring to us is a routine, right? We have something that we do every day, whether it's get up, feed them, take them on walks, let them outside. And I'm a creature of habit and I'm routine based. And so that was kind of one of the things that, we headed back home this weekend. We were back in Nashville for a wedding, and we were discussing what time to leave. And my first thought was, we got to get back, and we got to get Kona. And then it's just the natural. Even like when I'll wake up, even with the honesty, for the first 4 or 5 days after she passed away, I was still going downstairs. As silly as this may sound, I was still going downstairs and opening up her crate. And then before I went to bed at night, I would go and close it. If it just was kind of a last little bit of kind of holding on to her, and it was symbolic and for me in a lot of personal ways, but it was also just that routine. I'm just used to doing it. There's these things that become, that we just don't have to think about, doing anymore. It's just it's habitual. And so, my usual thing was to wake up and walk downstairs, have a little bit of coffee and take her for a long walk. And we did that. We've done that forever. And then, get back up, take her outside, walk back up, food, water, all these kind of things. And I didn't understand how much that stability and predictability was so important to me. And so I kind of took, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, just to kind of sit. And, we went to State of Confusion the day she passed away, and I ate my feelings, had a couple of Snickers pies. Took a couple of days to just not do anything. But then I thought, you know what? I know this pattern. I know me. If I sit and I don't do anything and I kind of isolate, then it's just not good for where I am mentally, or physically. And so I say, you know what, I'm gonna wake up and I'm gonna get going. And I swam 3 times. I worked out every day last week. I've hit on my workouts this week. Not with any grand goals in mind. I mean, yeah, I have plans to race this year, but it was more of just kind of like replacing something that was routine based. And then also, one of the things I started thinking about in the days, like the first few days of last week, when I was still having a whole lot of emotions, and still am, but crying a little bit, and I cried on my swim, cried on my bike one day, was how fortunate I feel, or I feel like I am, to have the ability to use fitness as a way to grieve. And that, cause to me, it's like to go out for, and you hear this all the time with people who may have an injury, and running is their way to process, right? Like the things that we can do to get away from our phone or reality or society, and like kind of clear our head and get out of our own thoughts is cleansing. And when that was removed from people, they really struggle mentally, and so I was like, man, I felt just very thankful to be able to go swim and to ride and to run and have that way to kind of grieve, instead of my only option being sitting on the couch, watching endless amounts of TV, eating shitty food, or, back in the day, it'd be going to the bar, so it was like, I felt very fortunate to be able to do something positive with my grief as an outlet. And so that was kind of the catalyst, and, to kind of get back in, and I swam yesterday morning. And I will say, like, admittedly, as much as I slack off in swimming in the past, because it, it's always come to me naturally, I've really forgotten how great it is for your mind. Like, you kind of joke, like, you can solve the world's problems in the shower, right? Or when you swim, because you're disconnected, right? You have an ability to think thoughtfully and thoroughly about whatever it is, because your phone's not chirping at you, right? You don't have all these demands. You don't get distracted. You can actually think through and process things versus, I got to look this up, or what about this? You're just kind of distracted. And I've missed, I guess I've undervalued how important that is to kind of cleanse my mind in the pool. And that's, I think, honestly, been one of the pieces I've appreciated most. And then, just been some realizations of practice what you preach. Like, I came in here on Friday morning around lunch. I said, hey, cause I went down, I was going to take my tri bike. We were going to Nashville. I was going to ride the Trace, and I went downstairs to grab my bike, and I had a flat tire, same flat tire that I had, the week and a half before, when I rode with a couple of guys doing St. George. And I was like, I just don't really want to mess with it. So I walked over here, and I was like, hey, you gonna use the road bike? You were like, I am, but I'm gonna be nice and let you kind of, take it for the day. And then I was like, you know what? You gotta just deal with it. Go back, change it, take your tri bike. And I'm really glad I did. So, I'm just, I guess, trying to figure out my way back, but I'm happy with the intention that I have. I don't know about the progress so far. It's been 10 days, but I'm happy with my intention.
A lot of good stuff there, man. That was the one thing you said. I love it how you put that, is you're grateful that you had an option to go do it, because even though you haven't been training a lot, and I think most of us in the sport who have been in it a while kind of have that, I guess, ability to actually go out and do it. So, whether it's 2,000 meters or something like that, you could probably take, a whole year off of swimming and probably pull that one together, just go out and swim. Mm-hmm. 99% of people can't do something like that. They can't go run. They can't go ride, with me on the bike. I mean, I'm training for Chat 70.3, allegedly a little behind the 8 ball. And I just started, getting back on for me, it's usually the bike. I went out maybe 3 weeks ago, and, or 2 weeks ago, whenever we were going through a lot of stuff or whatever. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, I got to get after it, or just get going. And, to be able to just go out and ride for 2 hours out of the blue, having not ridden for a while, that is it's a huge, piece to have in your puzzle. I mean, a lot of people can't do that. So, and when you were talking about swimming and how you can kind of work through problems or thoughts and things like that, you have no option to check your phone, really. I mean, you give a lot of people bring it, sit it on the side of the deck, and I suppose that's because they want to remember their workouts.
Yeah.
But
that's what they make index cards for, folks.
My instinct is telling me most people are checking emails or whatever after in between sets, and I don't think that's good, man. And because to me, all this stuff is meditation in motion, and meditation is basically sitting on something and letting it kind of work its way out or whatever. And that's why, people always say, I can't meditate because I just have too many thoughts and everything. No, that is meditation, right? Your objective is to, hopefully calm down some of those, instinct thought releases and just calm them down a little bit. So you're not overreacting to certain situations or whatever. And you can think through things with a clearer mind without being influenced by, some kind of distraction. It's interesting, because I was out running the other day, and I bring my phone, but I put it in my belt for my water bottle in the back. And normally I turn off my, notifications, but I'm running along and it starts pinging. And of course, the worst,
it's the worst.
You're always like, man, is there an emergency? And I'm like, no, just don't do it. Ping.
Yep.
And I can just barely hear it too. And I'm like, sure enough, I got out to turn around and checked it. And it really wasn't. It was just a couple things, But that's all part of it, man. It's like, man, you gotta disconnect from that stuff and let yourself work through issues and things like that, and deal with things rather than, because the distraction is the enemy.
And I talk about this so often with athletes, and I even said this in the weekly email I sent out, in terms of communicating, with our athletes. And last week I was just like, I'm gonna need a minute. I want you to cut me some slack if you can. I just need some time to process, which is the opposite of how I've always been with everything in life. I've just been kind of nose to the stone, get it done. I'm fine. I think we all kind of like to use the phrase like, well, I feel bad being so upset about this when there's so many other problems going on in the world. Right, and you're like, stop using it as a cop out to not grieve. Like, it's like, and just like the phrase now that you can watch in interviews, that's so fascinating to me, is when people apologize for crying. They're like, sorry, I didn't mean it. Like it's like what you're doing is offensive. Like, oh my God, you're feeling something. Oh, yes, you should be so apologetic.
Right.
And how much I feel like, and even using that day to talk through things on a podcast was just incredibly healing for me, instead of just kind of smothering and suffocating the real feelings I had, because I'm sure some people who aren't dog lovers or don't have pets be like, why the hell are you so upset about a dog?
Right.
Yeah. Like, how ridiculous does this sound? And then the more I read, the more I talked to people, I was like, okay, this is totally normal. Like, a lot of people grieve more about them than, than some people's parents, So I was like, all right, this makes me feel better. Like, I'm not like, I didn't have this ridiculous attachment to my dog. This is normal for people who have dogs for a long period of time and love them. This is it. And so I thought, and it was also, I think she was worth grieving for. Like, she was like I didn't want to bottle up the emotions and go through those things. And what I did is, I feel like it by letting all those emotions out, I felt like it kind of allowed me to rise up in a way in certain better in areas of my life that I maybe hadn't been, instead of just smothering and suffocating everything. Which, again, going back to fitness, and a lot of athletes mention this, and if you're listening, you've been injured before, you've been sick before, or I always hear from athletes, I don't ever want to take advantage of my health again, because it's the thing on this planet besides our time I think we just don't underestimate how lucky we are to have our health, and the time that we have is the most valuable thing you have in life, is your own time. And then your own health, people just take it for granted. And then a lot of times people might say, like it's somebody mentioned me the other day, is like, they said, I will never take it. I will never, it was, I'm going to butcher the wording, but it was basically saying, I don't ever want to take advantage of having a coach ever again, and how lucky I am to have someone to talk to and to work things through. Because a lot of people that are inconsistent, when they want to get consistent, life doesn't, we always say that, like, and we get super frustrated when life's going great and we just aren't motivated and don't want to be consistent, we just don't train. But then right when the minute happens, right, that we want to like crank things up, life's like, whoa. Hey, this isn't your time. This is my time. And you get so frustrated, which what I think we're all really frustrated with is ourselves, like that we don't capitalize on opportunities because you never know what's going to go. You never know what's going to happen. Injuries, illness, job loss, divorce, moving, like we can't predict those things. Right. And so to rest on the assumption that it's always going to be available is, I think, both detrimental and also unfair, right, to ourselves. And so, I just think it's one of those things that isn't talked about enough in terms of how we deal with life and how we process life through training, and to imagine what it's like to not have that, to not have that opportunity to go out and to work through things and only be kind of relegated to, I guess I'll pick up, a video game, or I'll gamble, or I'll do something to kind of release. Cause I don't, like you said, we do as endurance athletes, have been doing this for long. We all the time underestimate and I think take for granted how far we've come. And as much as we want to, bemoan and complain about, not getting faster enough, quicker enough, or not being where I used to be, it was like you said it, 99% of the people won't even get up and take a 30-minute fucking walk today, right? They'll just sit, right? Becoming sedentary is like, the thing now. And they'll work for 20 hours and they'll eat like crap. Like that's how people deal with their emotions if they even choose to deal with them. So to have the ability and the health is something that I think we all kind of need a reminder of, to just not take for granted and to capitalize on it, and maybe not smother and drown out the positivity that we can gain from just increasing general aerobic fitness and becoming healthier individuals with the constant negative, and bad self-criticism we do of ourselves when we're not getting maybe fast enough. Is like, wait a minute, like, yes, you can get frustrated in time during certain periods of time, but for the most part, remember and be thankful that you can actually get out and do things like that.
Right.
And I've always found that the fastest athletes are the most grateful athletes, because there's this link, I think, between happiness and gratitude and letting things go and being free and letting things happen versus just being constantly, tensed up and expecting something out of it and not appreciating the ability that we really have.
Mm-hmm. There's this, for me, a lot of times, I think what is hidden in all this kind of stuff is like regret, right? Because even though I've gotten back into it, and my minor piece of regret will be, why didn't I just stay with this? And then I'd be, and I think there's a lot of that in life. I was talking to somebody about this. Like I used to read a lot of books growing up. I would always read, even up through like almost, it was a little before when I met you, because what I kind of have tied it to is the emergence of my cell phone and how that has just become that's why I think I get so frustrated with those things sometimes, is like the distraction of it, because it's so easy to kind of go cliff note your life through cell phones, right? Mm-hmm. And I used to read all the time, and now sometimes it's sort of the same kind of thing. I get back in it and I can still read, right? Yeah, I'm okay, but I'm not like where I could be, or I could have read probably 1,000 books since I've had a cell phone,
right,
that I didn't read. So sometimes I get in this place where I'm like, man, but you can't, I guess it's regret, but I can't really, live on regret with that kind of stuff. And the same goes with training a lot, is like, man, I missed a lot of opportunities. Why did I do that? All right, I'm going to get back in it. I love what you said about how, you 10 days or whatever, you don't feel like you're moving mountains or anything, but something's going in the right direction. And, at what point do we even know what mountain we're going to move? It's just like, if it feels good, you move in the right way. I do think that really is the key to everything. And you have to be in the place you're in and accept the place you're in and realize that, you're going the right direction and you're just doing the best you can. It's like, I talked to my mom about this several times, because without having kids and, like being her child, and I've got a lot of, I think we all have a lot of things, right, that we battle through and deal with and everything like that. And I can't imagine, like, you as most parents probably will always have a tinge of sort of like, man, could I have been a better parent? Mm-hmm. Could I have done that a little bit better? So I always try to reinforce with my mom, is like, don't ever think about that. You gave me everything I need. It's my
responsibility.
Yeah. So I think about that with Maddie a little bit. I'm sure you thought about that with Kona. It's like, yeah, could I have done better? You know, but we have to realize that that's part of being human, I think. And I love to tell my mom that, to take that burden off of her, even if it works. I don't know, but like, because I know there's probably things in there, and I just think we do that to ourselves with self-regret about working out or something like that, or training. We took a year off, or we were slacking, or we missed that workout, or whatever it is. It's like, you just did the best you could in that moment. And understanding what that really means is tricky, I think, because you did the best you could given the circumstances. Because you're always going to look back and say, well, I don't think I really did the best I can, because I could have done that, but I didn't. But what else was going on, right? Outside, or, you know, in your life, what kind of things were going on to make it to the point where you gave up, you know, training for 6 months or whatever. I mean, I don't think you really wanted to do that, but like, be grateful, I think, that you don't, because what happens is when I started the training late in life, that was what motivated me. I was like, I was regretful. I was like, man, I was a good athlete growing up. I just, you know, put on a belly and like just was like having my old fun. I was like, I better get after this now, because it's not going to get any easier. So now is the time to just, you know, show yourself grace and just start doing it again, or, you know, move in the right direction. That's all you can do. You can't win the race today.
We always make decisions, right? And choices. And we, you know, so when people take breaks, I mean, I've taken a lot of breaks the last 10 plus years, you know, like, you know, and so, yeah, sometimes I think about the same thing. It's like, you know, man, I wonder if I trained consistently for X amount of time, you know, where would I be right now? And then I'm like, well, I obviously didn't for a reason. It's not because I'm a lazy piece of shit, because I've had a lot going on, and I've made, you know, like when, I'll never forget, like back when I lived in Overland Park the first time, I went and ran with Matt Fitzgerald, the guy that does like the 80-20 thing. He was in town, and he was interviewing me for one part of his books, and he asked me about something. I said, I don't have time for that. He said, well, you got time. It's just not high on your list to make time for. And I was like, yeah, whatever. Anyway, but it's so true. And I said, and I was like, because like, it's not that I was sitting on the couch, right, just letting the life pass me by, right? But then all of a sudden, when we want to get back, it's like, we forget why we made the choices that we did, right? And I think that's just part of owning it, instead of, you know, going back. I mean, yeah, did I think about that on my run today when I got off the bike? I was like, oh my God, it's hot. Like, wouldn't I love to be in better shape, you know, than I am right now? And then I was like, well, you know, then you commented just the other day that somebody was like, yeah, because they said, I can't believe how out of shape I am, just getting back in there. I said, you're not out of shape. You have the shape that you have. And if you want to have better shape, then stay consistent. And it's that simple, right? But we always like to talk about where we aren't, right? Basically where we wish we were. But then we never kind of layer it back into, well, okay, well, what would you trade, right? To go back and have that. Would you give away, would you give away some time with family or your kids or your spouse, or, you know, how you did with work, or, you know, working people? Would you give that up? No, probably not. Okay, so maybe you're fine, right? Maybe this is how the progression is supposed to be. A lot of it is just acceptance, right? And understanding like the choices that we make have repercussions and consequences, but a lot of times they also have things in a good way, right? Like things that, you know, like, I think if we don't like to kind of do inventory, right, as people, because it makes us uncomfortable, right? Like, you know, I had an athlete that, you know, I'm very open and honest about my, you know, alcoholism and being sober for 8.5 years. And I had an athlete that was like, hey, I'm on day 25 or some a big number of not drinking, and, you know, talked through things about being unhealthy, you know, and not having a healthy balance with things. And, you know, I just kind of listening, and, you know, he was like, you know, how are you doing? And I said, listen, I have zero. I've yet to find one thing in my life that would be better if I drank. And I've been doing this, I've been sober for 8.5 years, but I can tell you about 1,000 things that would be wrong with my life if I started to drink again. So with me, that's an easy choice. Like, yes, it's an addiction to me to work through and deal with, but that's an easy choice, right? Yeah. Yes. It would be nice to go out and, you know, sit this time of year, go out on the porch and have a margarita with your friends and kick back and relax. Yeah, that would be awesome. But I can't do that, right? It's not normal to me. Like, why are you having one? You should have 4. But I know that, right? So that's why I don't. But I also think is that one, would that 30-minute, hangout with that margarita, would that be worth, ruining so much of your life? Absolutely not. Right. And so we all have choices in life. And I think owning them is just something that we have a hard time doing, because we don't remember why we made the choices we made in the moment. Right. When our emotions are high and we want to get back to, yes, did I want to be faster on my run today? Yeah. Did I want to be, a little bit stronger on my bike today? Yeah. But am I better off than I was 10 days ago? 100%. And so that's all I had to kind of think about was, I'm not trying. And I think that's, again, I think the reason people have a problem with it is because we all want things quickly, right? Like I was listening to Christian Blumenfeld's interview with Bob Babbitt, which I'm just going to say this off the bat. I know he's a legend in triathlon. Get somebody younger. It was hard to listen to him speak. I'm sure, I know he's got the Babbitt like radio. He's like, him and Noah, and I got to tell a quick story on Mike Riley. We need some new people. I know he's an icon, but he gets interviewed during the Ironman Texas race, and the words that come out of his mouth were, yeah, I mean, listen, besides a little breeze, you can't really ask for a better day of racing. The conditions are perfect. And
He's an optimist,
I'm
man.
like, what kind of race are you at? It's just disconnect. We need some younger, fresher blood. Okay, so let's do that. Anyway, Christian Blumenfeld said, he said they're talking about progression. He said, yeah, so we've been talking about the kind of recent domination of the Norwegians, and he pretty much said, we made this plan 10 years ago. And I listened to it like 2 or 3 times, and they were like, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. We started the squad. We knew we were going to take this time to do this time to this time to get to where I was like, good God. I was like, the patience and the understanding and the buy-in that it takes to just mentally wrap around, this is going to take a long time, and to do it is unbelievable. Because right now, again, going back to what I was trying to say, people wish they were in better shape because they don't have much faith they're going to stick with it long enough to get it back. And we kind of want that quick fix. We want things to feel better quick. We want to get our shape back quicker, and sometimes we just need a reminder, right? Of to be, and I think this is one of the hardest part of endurance sports in the world we live in is because everybody wants a pat on the back, right? And a hooray and a great job. And, you still crushed it. And like, sometimes the reality is you just didn't fucking do enough, right? We need to do better, right? And you can just own that and be like, okay, you know what? I just should have done better. Let me see if I can do better, right? And instead of just accepting, because I see this all the time as a coach, we've gotten kind of used to people just expect because they started triathlon 5 years ago that every year they've been a triathlete, they're going to get better, right? Instead of looking back objectively and be like, what's the work you just did in the last 6 months, and did that equal out to a better performance? You don't just get PRs because you're getting older and because you've been in the sport for 3 years. You get PRs from working your ass off, and then honestly getting a little lucky on race day. But so I think we do. At times we all need kind of an objective reality check to be like, all right, maybe I'm not where I need to be. And if you really want to get there, then understand it's going to take time to get it back, right?
Mm-hmm. I always get fascinated by this idea of getting faster and what we need to do to get there. And then are we ever going to be satisfied with it? Because, like I was just thinking, you can just give me in a half, 70.3. What's like a pace on the run that would just, you think you can maybe ultimately get if you ever, worked your ass off to get it?
Me?
Yeah. I mean, just like, what would make what would blow your mind?
620s.
Okay. But then you did that and it'd be like,
610s.
610s.
Right.
So, and then as you're getting older, you got other things in your life, all this other stuff. Like, I just think it's so interesting to think about it that way, because like for me, an Ironman has always been like, not sub 9 or something like that.
Sub 9? Oh, yeah, that's fast.
Well, I mean, I've done 10. So I'm like, okay, if I can ever like work that out and get into sub 9, then I'm like, it'd be really kind of cool to go sub, 830s or, which is crazy, but still. But I mean, like, at what point does that end? So we have to be able to, you're right. You have to be able to accept yourself and accept the reality of what, and you talk about 10 years, that was our, our plan. Like, who has that? And then, like, who has that much faith in a plan that you're going to stick with it 10 years? And then what does that mean? Does it mean you're going into the youth circles and you're like, hey, this is how you're going to train for the next 10 years. And then by the time you're old enough to race, you're going to dominate.
Yeah.
Okay. That sounds very like, Russian gymnasts,
yeah.
So that's like kind of a weird thing too, right? Like, these are people dedicating their lives to it, right? 100%.
Oh yeah. They're totally
buy in,
yep.
Time wise, everything they do is around that. So I don't know if that's what any of us really want to do too. And you talked about, like, some days you want to go out and have a margarita with your friend. That's life for most of us. It's not, beating down the walls every day in the pool and whatever.
Yeah, no, and the 10 years is an extreme example, but even asking an athlete to do it for a year.
Oh, I agree.
Is extreme, right? Because we want, I think what happened, the people who I've worked with in the past and work with currently that do the best or the most consistent are the ones that aren't looking for something tomorrow or this year or even for a race. It's ones that are just in it, right? They're in it to see what happens and to see success. And they know that that will happen. Yes. Is it great to have, like, a little thing, here and there to keep it going? Sure. But I think a lot of it is just that people are driven internally to want to figure things out, right? Because that's a huge puzzle to get better. And it's very symbolic of how the rest of their life is going, right? If you're, for most of these athletes, if they're into training and they're just checking boxes, life's going really good, right? Because it's more of a representation of how life is going than anything. It's a part of their life, and then things happen and they progress. It's not an obsession, right? And because anytime you're obsessed with something, anytime you judge yourself so critically on an event that's so varying, like, oh, I did the same event last year and I had the same time here, like, I guarantee the conditions were different. We have these irresponsible and inaccurate predictions and expectations we have for ourselves, and we use that as judgment, right? Of how we're doing. And then, and I think it's really gotten worse the last few years because people really, really need, at least from my point of view as a coach, reading through athletes' comments and talking to people, like, people feel like they need wins right now more than ever, like for whatever reason. And so they look to training for those wins, right? For the predictability, for the structure, for the improvement. But if that's the only place they're looking, then it's going to come up empty no matter what, because like you said, what is fast enough, right? What is enough money, right? What is happy enough, right? Like, you're always going to want more. Always. So what is enough, right? And how is that going to play out, and where do you get the most fulfillment, right, in life? I think in one of the books I was reading recently, they said like $107,000 is the average amount of money people said they could make each year and be comfortable. And then they found out once they hit that, everyone thought they needed to make more and more and more. And
right. Yeah, that's like the same thing.
It's infinitely scalable to, you're never done. You're never happy enough. You're never gonna have enough or be fast enough or do this because and I think a lot of times, like, people,
at what cost?
Right, exactly. At the cost of it, right? Like, going back to, we were mentioning, like,
billionaires.
We all make choices, right? Like about what's going to make us happy. And some of the people that I know that are the happiest have made drastic choices to scale back and to do less. And of course, I'm like, man, I really admire that anyway. Then I can move on. But it's like, so it's the opposite, right? And I think that's what's so hard about society now, is that we're always judging and expecting and comparing, and then we layer that onto, we got to do more, we got to make more, we got to work harder, we got to sleep less, we got to do this, we got to do that, we got more friends and more of this. I'm like, whoa, that's so much. Like, it's drastic swings of the pendulum every way, every single, direction. So I've just kind of like barely moving the needle today and having a little bit of control. It's just, you see the extremism of today in every aspect, that there really isn't a happy medium or a gray. the pendulum swings black and right, black and white, left and right. I mean, it's insane. It's insanity, honestly, in my opinion, to be that drastic in any direction about anything. That it's and then to layer it back in with, comparison and expectations, and it's, there's so many things obviously we could do. And I mean, I'll be the first to say that I suck at doing a lot of them. At scaling things back. When I'm like, man, I really wish I could, scale things back, or how, much happier would I be if I, did this, or what opportunities could I have if I did this? And I feel the last 7 to 10 days, I feel like I've done a better job of it than ever. But I'd also be lying if I was like, I'm going to keep it going forever. Because sometimes even get I'm trying to get myself to slow down and appreciate things more, and take more time to do things, and enjoy things more and be present. And then I already have to catch myself. I'm like, dude, what are you doing? Stop it. It's hard. It's really, 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 really hard. But I do know that there's huge value in it, because when I know I'm doing it, I can see the benefit from it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's this. Have you ever seen the, I don't know if it's a fable or whatever. It's about the fisherman that's sitting on the beach with a couple fish, and he's just whittling away. And this guy comes up next to him. He's like, hey, what are you doing? He goes, well, I just finished fishing for the. He goes, why don't you get a better fishing pole? And, he's like, why would I do that? He goes, then you can catch more fish and then hire some people. And he's like, why would I do that? You can catch more fish. Then you can get a fleet of boats and do all that kind of stuff. And he goes, and then you could do, make tons of money and whatever. And he goes, then what would I do? And he goes, then you could kick back and relax. And he's like, that's what I'm doing right now.
I love that.
I love what you, when you talk about your lifestyle athletes, so just talk about training, and that's what they do, right? Because I was thinking, how do you get faster and how do you get better and stronger in the sport and whatever? And usually it comes down to, we talk about just being there every day and doing some workouts and doing the workout or whatever. And I guarantee you, my guess is when you talk about people like that, you don't think about people that actually work out every day and then always kind of do a little more, or go further and further. They're probably always erring on the side of less, but just staying in the game and just doing a little bit more every day, or a little bit every day that keeps you going. But, it's most people want to do more to try and get faster, better, stronger, when it's just sort of this, quick fix, catch up kind of mentality. But like you're saying about that pendulum swings, you need to just kind of go about your business. And for me, is I think if you, if any of our athletes just kind of just stayed with the plan and did most of the workouts, meaning, 95% or whatever, and some were less, but none were more, you'd probably come out way ahead of the game.
One of the, and I probably put this in the top 3, characteristics, attributes, whatever you would say, of high performing athletes. When I mean high performing, I mean getting the best out of themselves for the longest period of time, is that they are not prisoners of the moment. Their workout wasn't the greatest. Their workout wasn't the worst ever. It was just the workout, and I felt pretty good today. Yes. Do you need, are we always going to have man, I felt really good today? Yeah. But there's a few times, there are a few text messages I sent on Monday and Sunday, and I was looking through a few things for some people that are in some bigger kind of blocks, and I was like, dude, you nailed it. They're like, yeah, I felt pretty good. Mm-hmm. It wasn't dude, I am ready. I'm going to crush it. It was yeah, I felt pretty good. Mm-hmm. All right, good. It wasn't, again, I don't know when we got to the point where we feel like everything has to be graded, right, and scored, instead of just taking it for what it is and moving on, right? That's the worst workout ever. Well, all right. Well, I guess every workout for the rest of the year would just be medium, because you just had your worst workout ever, or your best. Yeah. I don't know when, it just kind of happened to think when we all got to this extremes. It's just a workout. You got it done. It's a small piece of a giant puzzle. And I think the athletes that end up having the best results are the ones that aren't sure what that puzzle piece is going to look like, because they don't necessarily, it's not like they don't care. It's that they don't want to put a picture to it, because who says that picture won't be too small, right? Or not great. Mm-hmm. They're I'm really liking I like the direction I'm heading. best thing you can feel, right? Is I don't know where I'm going. No idea. I don't know. Because it's infinite, right? It's not a deadline or a dead end at, a race and you get in a new car and you start over again. It's infinite progression for as long as you want to be consistent and work hard, right? Yes, does along the way, do we kind of have, do we daydream or whip out TriCalc and are like, yeah, I think I can kind of get close, sure. But hopefully it's not your ultimate dead end destination, because then what's left, right? Then you're unhappy again because you're like, oh, well, now I got to get to this. Like you said, I love the story about the fisherman. It's like, why do I need more, right? Mm-hmm. Why do I need to do more? And like you said, like, okay, back, well, I already have that. I already have that mentality of I'm already enjoying what I'm doing. Why do I need this? Why do I need to do extra? Like, I felt good today. Do I need to feel crushed? No. Okay. Well, why would I go run 10 more extra miles? Why would I run that much harder? It feels good enough, right? And we've said this before a lot of times that, great is the enemy of good. And being that enemy, and what so many people are bought into is what usually ends up handing out, a worse, right? Because all you do is feel like you can't get enough, right? You can't be fast enough or fit enough or skinny enough or strong enough or rich enough or have enough friends. It's like, what is enough, and then the same ones don't get downtrodden and upset and just depressed after a great race or a bad race or a rough race and take 4 weeks off and wonder what they've been doing in the sport. They just go like, yeah, it just wasn't my day. And they get back on the saddle and do it again. Same thing goes for the ones that go great. Man, that was a good day. All right, well, back to work. It's that blue collar mentality, that you're like, man, it pays off in the end to not be so extreme. And that's something that, our athletes give me a hard time sometimes because I'm not a huge, gigantic cheerleader. I'm more of like, we just calm down, calm down and it's just relax. Like, yes, this is good. Or I'll throw a couple, woohoos in there and some great jobs. But, it's like when you as a coach throw in those grandiose comments and whatever, I feel like it reinforces the extremism of, hey, just good job today. I'm saying good job. Not because then when you don't hear the man, that was awesome, then the next day you don't get one and you're like, did I not do awesome today? Yeah. Was that not awesome? 'Cause I felt awesome, but you didn't see it was awesome. Like, you just did the work. Like, it's just good. The race is when you'd be like, that really rocked. But it's just, again, the pendulum swings so far and so dramatic back and forth that people get tired of it. But we as humans, we do it to ourselves because we're the ones that choose to swing it so drastically in each direction. Yeah. I'm sure you're like me. So that somebody goes out and gets a solid 3 or 4 hour ride on the weekend and they just sort of say, man, I just felt really good today. I felt in control. I nailed the pacing. I didn't push too hard, blah, blah, blah. And that's when you get excited as a coach, right? It's like, yeah, that's what it's all about. I think about that a lot lately because being behind training for a race, for example, and I think most people probably feel that at some point. I just feel like I'm not getting enough volume or I haven't gotten enough, all this kind of stuff. And I just look for moments, right? Sometimes yesterday I was out on a fairly decent run or 2 days ago. And I hit like about mile 7 or 8 or whatever. It was sort of like, all right, I feel like I got it in me a little bit, it's like, but you didn't need to see it that day. To understand that, I think, is a huge part of training. At least it has been for me all my life, is kind of, and I've talked about before, when I've had a really good swim, instead of going 3,000 that might wipe me out for tomorrow, I stop around 2,600 or 2,500 and be like, I know I feel good today. I feel great. I'm going to bank a little energy and do kind of snowball that effect, right? So it's like if you're behind the 8 ball and you're trying to catch up, so like you have a 3,000 swim and then a tough bike the next day or whatever. And if you have time, a month or 2 or whatever, kind of bank some of that energy for tomorrow and then do the exact same thing. It's like, I could have rode this thing out for, 145 or 2 hours, but I'm going to stop about 130 or 120. And cause I know I got it, but I need something for tomorrow. You have to kind of keep the next few days in mind all the time. And it's like they struggle maybe with an early couple workouts in the week, and I'll be like, all right, it's okay.
just figure things out because you have a big weekend. I just want you to be solid on the weekend because these are some big days. Don't let this whole thing fall to shit because you're trying to catch up on Wednesday for everything you missed on Monday and Tuesday or whatever. Those types of things. And I think that mentality is something that really can pay off in races too. It's sort of like, all right, really being able to get in touch with who you are right then in that moment and understanding how to handle that race in that moment. And you know how things are, that just because they're not quite there yet. I always hear it, deeper into training, like, man, I never warmed up. It took me about 2 hours to get loose on the bike or whatever. It's like, but suddenly every day we feel like we need to be, that's an interesting thing too about when I got into the sport. I had no idea about endurance stuff, and I'd go to like these 5Ks or whatever. And I'd see people like running before the race and shit, like the high end.
Up, yeah.
They're like running like 2 miles before the race. I'm like, dude, save your energy, man. You need to be ready or whatever. But it's something about, I think, when we're kids even, like the concept of actually warming up or letting your body get ready to do what it needs to do is kind of lost on us. And you think that you should be more energized when you start. And I think like, if you can get your head wrapped around this idea of like, no, I want to be more energized in the middle and towards the end. And what is that going to take? And how can I do that mentally? Because if you're starting a run in a race, you're like, I just don't have it today. Well, you might. You just kind of got to play around and tinker around and tune some things up and get your head straight or whatever and let that kind of unfold. To me, that's like a huge skill. And I think you can learn that in training by not going overboard all the time.
And not being so damn greedy.
Yeah.
Like people have, in all kinds of ways, have become so greedy, but even in our training and people's mentality of, like you said, wanting more, doing extra, going, 10 watts above is probably the best thing for me today. It's like, no, that's like, in the thing about it with training is you might not realize how greedy you were today until you wake up 2 days from then and be
exactly.
like,
It's sort of like eating crappy today and feeling it 2 days later.
Yeah, it's the effects linger, and so you're affecting the other opportunities. Like this morning, perfect example. I got on the bike at 25 1-minute intervals. I knew from my first 5 minutes of the warm, I was like, not feeling it today.
No,
not feeling it. Yeah, my range for the 1 minutes were 225 all the way up to 240, and every single one of my 25 1-minute intervals were either 225 or 226. I said, I'm just going to scrape the bottom of the barrel today because that's all I got. Yeah. And I don't want to be dead tomorrow, right? I want to be able to get back and continue on this pattern, right, of just getting it done and doing the work and not trying to be greedy and going for the top, because what would have happened is I would have gone 238, 238, 240, 237, 235, and then just been struggling, and then I would have lost the intention of the workout was to keep my heart rate relatively low. Yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah. And like, and then been like, I didn't have it today. But the truth of the matter is that I had enough today, but I choose to act like I had more. Right. And then I dug. So I knew that if I wanted to complete the workout to its duration at 115, that I was going to have to aim low and just try to aim low enough to get through the whole thing versus acting like someone I wasn't that day or this morning and with legs I didn't have, and then gone through about 20 minutes and then be like, all right, I better soft pedal to make 60. Then I can just be like, well, I didn't have it today. Yeah, you did. You just spent it irresponsibly, right? It's like, it's I'm out of money. I don't have any money to buy, you're at the carnival. You're like, I don't have 20, Dad, I want a waffle cone. I want a funnel cake. I'm like, sorry, I don't have any money. Well, yeah, you just spent $20 trying to get that damn softball through something the size of a golf ball, and you can't get it in. So you wasted. You had it, and that's people do all the time in workouts. We want to aim so high, whether it's trying to impress ourselves or our followers on Strava, or the people we're competing against in Zwift, or our coach. Like, stop trying to impress. What's impressive is patience and restraint. That's impressive. Mm-hmm. But it's a very, very hard skill to learn. And it's a very hard, it seems very, very difficult for endurance athletes to kind of wrap their brain around, even though that's what endurance is about, right? Resilience, patience, showing, restraint. that's what gets you to, the finish. And that's something we'll kind of go over in our podcast later this week when I talk a little bit about St. George and the World Championship race there this Saturday. Is a lot of it's going to come down to restraint and patience. And so much that's it. It's like, and again, we know all these things, yet as a coach, and I say this all the time after tracking people for a race, I'm like, why are you even looking? Why are you even tracking? Why are you even tracking? None of it matters. None of it matters to the last 10K. None of it. The last half marathon. But here I am looking at the first splits, on the swim. They're probably inaccurate. Like, chance today. I'm right back in it.
Yeah.
So we get it. It's hard, but I think we all need a reminder. I need a reminder. I know you do. It's just to be patient in the good things that come from, being in something sustainable and that creates longevity, instead of the attitude and the greed of having to have it now. And if I don't, then I'm going to change it up, or I'm going to ask for this, or I'm going to do this. I'm like, a lot of times when we're searching for answers, it means the most simplest one is probably staring us right in the face, which is to do something a little bit simpler, right? And that we can just kind of own and be like, well, I think I should buy a power meter. No, I think you should ride your bike more. I think I should, buy this in a new 800 wetsuit. No, I think you should get your ass in the pool more. I think I should, buy these new carbon plated shoes. Nope. I think you should get your ass and run more. Like, do all those simple things first, and the other things will matter. But we, as humans, like to go in reverse.
Mm-hmm. It's so easy. I mean, we've all had those prisoner of the moment days that have turned into like something we never expected, but that's like rare, so that's why I think it's important to, and we'll talk about this with St. George, is like we always try to get people in the right headspace before these races. And I think this is going to be obviously a really important one. Yeah. I also think that, maybe we can start that podcast talking about that Sam Long interview we listened to the other day, and what he was saying was hilarious.
He's your kind of guy, man. I know you don't follow the pros that much, but he's
I know.
He's kind of a hippie. He's kind of a hippie, dude. He's kind of a free spirit, which again, free spirits rub people wrong these days because it offends them, or they like to put people on a box.
Well, yeah, I've always been that. I like him. I don't follow the pros, but I've always been into that Cody Beals philosophy stuff too. Yeah, he's like you wake up, you do what you're feeling like you're going to do today.
Yeah, he was hit by he hit a car because some lady tried to get out in front of the intersection, but he was like, I took the next day off and did a few things. He's really, really, really good for the sport. It's gonna be fascinating. We can talk about that for sure. We'll talk about that on Thursday. As always,
I want to have a little diversion here.
A diversion?
Well, it's just because I know you went to a wedding on Saturday, and we talked about it a little bit beforehand, because it's one of my, weddings? Like I said, one of my favorite things at weddings is watching the older guys that don't dance, kind of their first few moves on the dance floor, see how they get into the flow of their dance. I don't know if you had dance in there, but no. I asked you beforehand what you're going to wear, because you're not really a dress-up guy necessarily. And
not really a dress-up guy?
That particular day, you were up there and I stayed here, but I drove by down Main Street. There's a church down there, if you ever noticed it, but they're having an outdoor wedding, and I just kind of drove through there real slow, looking at what the guys are wearing, and I'm like, oh my God, this is so funny to see what dudes that never dress up really pull out of their ass for a wedding, and it just never quite works.
I was in shorts.
That stuff. Oh, nice.
Shorts.
It was a casual wedding.
Flip-flops and a short sleeve button down.
Well, that works so much better than like the suit that hasn't been worn in 8 years.
Dude, it was like, thankfully it was a small wedding. It was at my aunt's house in her backyard. So it was only 80 people there. And I was still probably the most, laid back dressed one there. But the point that I try to make to people is like, when you dress down as much as I do, dude, I can throw on a pair of jeans and like a polo. People are like, man,
you look like you're walking in a tux.
They look like I'm about to, I was the number one pick in the NFL draft. They're like, dude, you look solid today. I'm like, it's my favorite pair of jeans, my only pair of jeans.
And actual shoes?
No, not actual shoes. Like, man, he's like, nice. Would you? I'm like, I put on jeans and a polo. Like,
I'd love to see some of those pointy loafers.
Oh, Jesus. Don't even know. I see something. I generally, I saw there were a couple people there. I was like, who said that was okay to wear? Who made this okay to wear? Like, did you rob Peter Pan?
Great,
man.
Did
you rip off his shoe? Like, who wears shoes like that?
It's a cruel joke.
I don't understand. In the the pastel, like I'm like, and some of the stuff, I don't get a lot of it. I don't get the women who wear like their jumper, like all the way up to like their chin. Like I don't understand a lot of anything fashionable, obviously, but I was like, what is going on here? And there was a lot of like there was one older guy there, and
that would be an awesome website. Wedding outfits.
I'm sure there already is one. Yeah, I had one conversation with one of the older guys there, and that was because he was my grandfather's best friend. He was telling stories about him, and then he said, Nashville's getting too damn big, man. I was like, well, he's like 90 something, but we won't go too far. But he was one who talked about his health. He said, because he said, my wife and I said, we only have like two friends left. He said, it's a blessing and a curse to be this healthy and live this long. Because most of and it was, but I will say one of the things that, and I hate going to weddings, but
surprises me.
Right, yeah, that does. But the main message that the preacher or whatever he was called had in the first 3 minutes was, people aren't resilient enough anymore. Everyone's become too soft and everyone gives up. And I was like, and I yelled, like, my man, that's it. But anyway, we hope you didn't give up on us. We won't give up on you. Go to our website.
Looking at you like,
like, who's that guy? Like, did he see drinking again? Go to our website, c26triathlon.com. It's our one-stop shop for all things coaching, camps, and community. If you need anything from Mike specifically, you can reach out to him, CrushingIron@gmail.com. If you need anything from me specifically, you can always get a hold of me, c26coach@gmail.com. If you want any more fashion advice, you can go to our other website, c26fashion.com.
Don't give me any ideas.
Don't do it.
All right, bud. Thanks.